Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. Al Fitzmorris and I go a long way back. Actually, the first time we ever met, we were going to work together. Right then, that day, and we would go on to do, well, way over 1,000 pre- and post-game shows. Most of those while the Royals were losing some games in the late 1990s and to right around 2000. Al and I have seen each other on the golf course and around ever since then, but those 5 years were spent in close proximity a lot, and you'll hear about that as we start off with Al. He's kind of a no-nonsense but friendly guy, doesn't suffer fools gladly, always was a great person to commentate with, fine golfer, fine athlete, all across the board, and he was somebody who had really never pitched very much until he almost saw his professional career end in the minors, and he said he could pitch even though he didn't know if he could, and he eventually would, and he would pitch well in the major leagues. It took a while for him to convince people that he indeed was a worthwhile pitcher, but he ended up winning 77 games at a .566 winning percentage clip and had consecutive 13, 16, and 15 win seasons for the Kansas City Royals. A native of Buffalo and California, he became a Kansas Cityan through and through, to the point that when he was sent away from Kansas City in his baseball career, things were never quite completely the same. It's a pleasure to talk to Al Fitzmorris. His story is an interesting one. His background is an interesting one. And he's always a fun spinner of a tale. Al Fitzmorris, coming up next on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, you know, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is "Where Integrity Matters." Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
There's no need to get a case of the Mondays every week, not during football season anyway. Hey, this is Matt Llewellyn from the 23rd Street Brewery, and we are the place for Monday Night Football. Food and drink specials every week, and all new televisions always at 23rd Street Brewery. The hardest thing about Mondays now will be getting through the workday, although waking up on Tuesdays might be a little bit tough. But remember, watch all the Chiefs games, NFL games, every game at the 23rd Street Brewery.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
Al, for a stretch of 4 or 5 years, we spent more time with each other than we did with our spouses, probably. Probably the reason that spouse isn't my spouse anymore. At least one of them.
Mine still is.
Yeah, so, there you go.
I'm still hanging in there.
Can't blame that. Yes, I can't blame that indeed. But it's a pleasure to get to talk to you. We spent a lot of time together through the years, and I got to know you very, very well. And some of the things we shared, we can't share here, but
we'll take to our graves at some point.
Right. We like to let people get to know some of the things they don't know about Al Fitzmorris, and they know the baseball player, and we'll get to that. And there's a lot of fun things there. But you were born in Buffalo, New York. How long were you there?
Buffalo, New York. We moved out to San Diego when I was about 8. I would say my sister had health problems, and nothing serious, but Buffalo just wasn't getting it. It's so cold in Buffalo.
It is.
And I don't know why anybody even lives there. But we moved to San Diego, and it was a blessing for me and everything that came my way from a sports standpoint and from, basically everything else. And so it was a gift for me.
Do you remember anything about Buffalo?
I do. I remember very cold winters. I remember my mom dressed me in we used to call them a snowsuit, right. And we'd go out and play and just freeze. And I didn't like it. Even as a kid, I didn't like it. Kids supposedly like snow. No, not so much.
So San Diego is about as good as it gets.
Oh, my gosh. Weather-wise, it was perfect.
Yeah. So you're going out there, and it's the mid-50s, basically, about that point in time? When you
54.
Right, 1954. So we have an idea of California, obviously, built on the Beach Boys and things like that.
Yeah,
well, we weren't quite there yet. What was it like to be in San Diego in the mid-50s?
It was easy. It was like... we had the drive-ins where people would drive their cars to get out, kind of like you see in the movies. Of course, the beach. In high school, I was at the beach. Every weekend, daily during the summer, every single day. Riding waves, doing things like that. But it was just easy. It was very easy, very casual lifestyle at the time. No pressures. It's tough today, but back then it was very easy growing up in California.
What did your parents do?
My dad was a route salesman. He actually sold basically uniforms, coveralls to gas stations, auto shops where they would wear like a blue pair of pants and a white shirt, and they'd change them out 2-3 times a week. And my mother, she worked for W.T. Grant's, which was like a J.C. Penney's back in the day, and she eventually managed it. And 2 working parents, but they were home when we were home. They got home when we got home, so it was good.
What was it? Was it a regular relationship between your parents? They both worked, which was a little bit unusual. But what was their relationship? Right? What was your relationship like with your parents?
I had the greatest parents in the world. We did everything together as a family. My mom arranged to get home like around 6. We would be done with our homework, and she'd come home, cook, we'd eat, and then watch TV. And then we'd go do something. We'd go get an ice cream. Weekends were always family things. As I started playing sports, everybody go to my games. So my parents were the reason that I was able to do what I did. Excuse me. They were just to this day. I miss them dearly. Every day of my life, I miss them. And I've as we may get into, may not, but as a musician, I wrote a song called "The Game" about my dad and my relationship growing up, and how he was so instrumental. But dads get a lot of credit; moms don't get enough. If it wasn't for moms, none of us would play a sport, and if we did, it'd be in a dirty uniform, and we wouldn't eat.
Did you have other siblings besides your sister?
I have an older brother. It's 3 years older than I am, and my sister is 6 years younger, and they're still in San Diego. And my brother said if he wasn't so old, he'd move out here. Mm-hmm. He'd get out of that environment right now.
But he was a little bit older than you. What was your relationship like with him?
Best friends. We did everything together. We played. He was 3 years older, so he was advanced in sports. But I would kind of be like a backup for some of the teams that he played on, and just to hang with my brother. And he was always the remember that song, the wind beneath my wings.
Right.
He was kind of that guy for me. He kind of kept me afloat, and he'd pick up chores for me so I could play my games, sports. Because I was serious. He wasn't a serious athlete. And he wound up lifetime successful. Me, not so much. He chose the right way to go. But he was my go-to guy. Still is.
When did you realize that you had some aptitude for sports? You're a pretty big guy, especially for your generation. At what point and in what sports did you start to really thrive?
What's funny is that as a kid I was small, very small.
Okay.
Smallest on the baseball team. But at 10, I'd never played baseball, but at age 10, my dad and my grandfather said, how'd you like to play baseball? And I go, well, I love the game. I like to watch it. And I'll try it. So I went out and made a team, and I was a catcher. And then the following year, I made a major team after only playing 1 year. And it got to a point where the parents and the teammates kind of were pointing at me to get things done on the field. And so I kind of started figuring out that I was, fairly good at the game. And I played for, as an 11-year-old and then as a 12-year-old. Boy, I've got something going on in my throat. And
all right.
Again, it was the parents and the coaches and the kids were all going, how you got to do this or we're not going to win this game. And it got a little overwhelming, to be honest with you. And so at 13, I decided I wasn't going to play anymore. So I quit and didn't play. And then after that, I decided I was going to play again, and then played from then on.
How long of a break did you take from playing ball?
Just the 1 year. The 1 year. At 14, I decided that I missed playing it a lot, and so I got back, and again, I kind of picked up where I let off. But I started playing second base. I was done catching, and then the following year, I became an outfielder, and started playing center field. Pitched just a little bit, very, very little. But my sophomore year in high school, I was supposed to play varsity ball, and I broke my hand. So that was out. The following year, there was a new school built that I had to go to, and I played 2 years there and then signed shortly thereafter.
You had to get married, as it were.
That's what we used to call it.
Yeah, in high school. The circumstances, obviously, to that aren't ideal, and that must have a real major impact on your life.
It really did. As I said, I had such a great relationship with my family. I'd never, ever in my life spent an entire night away from my mom and dad. Never. And all of a sudden, here I'm married in my senior year. I've got a child in May of my senior year. And yeah, it's growing up the best way I knew how and taking on these responsibilities the best way I knew how. It was quite different because I'd planned on going to college. I planned on probably playing football in college, maybe basketball, but probably not baseball for whatever reason. There were more opportunities to play football, but being married, wanting to do the responsible thing, I had to make money. So I got an opportunity to, after probably about a half a year after high school, I got an opportunity to sign with the Chicago White Sox and jumped on it. And, the rest, as they say, is, history, good, bad, or indifferent.
Well, you say you could have played football or basketball in college, so obviously you had some aptitude in those sports. Tell us about those sports and your journey there.
Basketball was probably my best sport, believe it or not. I probably averaged about 24, 25 points a game in high school.
Wow.
Football, without patting myself on the back, I was close behind basketball. I was a quarterback, threw for about 200 yards a game. We played an unusual high school game. We ran the ball some, but mostly threw the ball. And I just had a lot of opportunities. But to go to a 4-year school, I would have had to go to college and get a couple grades taken care of. Some classes that I didn't take. My senior year was very difficult for me. And so I didn't take. I thought I had the classes I needed in order to go to a 4-year school, but my counselor informed me that I didn't, and so I couldn't afford the 2 years, and so I signed to play professional baseball.
What happened to the marriage?
Lasted about 7 years. We just grew our separate ways. 2 kids. We went off to play instructional league in Florida. Mm-hmm. She was not yet 18. And I had just turned 19, and so it was a frightening time. I'd never, had anything like that from an experience standpoint. And we're driving from San Diego, California, to Sarasota, Florida. 2 kids, with 2 kids. And
very little money, I assume. You're an undrafted free agent, so how much money did you get?
The money we had to get to Florida was basically they sent us a plane ticket, and I cashed it for it was about $300, and that's what we got to Florida on. And I literally drove straight through. We did not stop. We did not spend a night anywhere. We drove straight through, and it was it was tough. It was tough. Those years were very, very lean. Very up in the air, the life of a minor leaguer. Very difficult. You stay wherever you can afford, and that wasn't very much. So it was just rough. It was rough for me. It was as rough for her, maybe worse because I'd go on the road.
Right.
She'd be home in a terrible living conditions with 2 kids. So it's hard to blame. It's hard to blame her for just wanting to be away from that life.
How quickly did the success come, or how much struggle was there in the minor league? You're an infielder at the.
Well, I was an outfielder. Outfielder,
right?
And in after my second year, they were going to release me and send me home, and they called me into the office, and they go, Al. We're getting ready to go into the playoffs because we'd won a first half. They used to do things in 2 halves, which I hope the big leagues goes to that, to be honest with you. That's the one change I'd like to see. But they go, after the playoffs, we're going to release you. And I go, well, I can pitch. They go, come on. I go, no, really, I can pitch. I couldn't pitch. I had no idea what I was doing. But I said I could. And, I wanted to play Major League Baseball. I was not going to go home and tell people I didn't make it. That was not going to happen. So we had about a week and a half to go, and I started 2 games. I played center field the other time, started 2 games, and pitched really well. And I actually, before my start, I had to ask one of my buddies who was on the pitching staff how to throw a breaking ball. I had no idea. And he showed me this little rinky slider. And I pitched well. And so they sent me to Instructional League after that. And I pitched in 67. First year pitching, 220 innings. First year ever on the mound, 220 innings. Just note that. And then next year I led the league in strikeouts. And next year, and that was 68. And that fall I was drafted by the Royals. And in
the expansion draft.
In the expansion draft. In 69 I went to Omaha and then to the Royals. So I basically pitched for less than 3 years and was in the big leagues.
How do you feel like you had an aptitude for it? I mean, you just made up this story that you could pitch. I assume that you're a center fielder. You obviously had a good arm. You're a quarterback. But there's more to pitching than just throwing the ball. It must have been some kind of natural.
Not anymore, Danny. Not anymore. I'd pitch some, but not enough to know anything.
Right.
I just basically, I threw a few games in high school. I didn't like it. I didn't like pitching, but I knew I could throw a strike, and I knew if someone could teach me a breaking ball, I could get people out. And I could, even back then, I wasn't walking a lot of people. Even when I first started out, I didn't walk a lot of people. I struck a lot of people out. And that changed in the big leagues. I didn't strike anybody out in the big leagues. But I didn't walk many either. But I just kind of figured it out. I was a good athlete.
Right.
And just kind of figured it out and learned very early on that if I threw the ball down the middle of the plate, it got hit. And so I learned to where I could hit spots inside, outside. And, the story goes.
Did you feel like the fact that you had played most of your career as a hitter taught you something about getting people out? Or a lot of times you'll say that people who, have played as a hitter, they know how hard it is to hit.
Exactly.
And so they don't give the batter maybe as much credit as some other people do.
I may have shared this with you at one point in time, but Allard Baird, he and I were good friends when he's a GM here. And I talked to Allard one day, and I said, Allard, why don't you let your pitchers hit in batting practice? Give them, take an hour, let whoever's getting their side work, throw to them, and let them see how hard it is to hit. And maybe then they'll start throwing strikes. And so Allard said, well, that's interesting. And I don't know that it ever followed through, but it is. It's difficult to hit, and I learned it was a lot easier to get people out than it was to put a ball in play. And so I was never really afraid to throw strikes.
You said you were a strikeout pitcher in the minors. You would be notoriously not a strikeout pitcher in the major leagues. What was the difference there? And then what was the difference in mindset in getting people out still when before you could strike them out, a third of them or whatever, and then you couldn't strike hardly anybody out?
The thing is that being quite honest, the minor leagues, every team has maybe one or two prospects. The rest of the guys aren't good players for the most part. And those two are if there's like a 21-man roster, 23-man roster in minor leagues, 21 of them are there to get two guys to the big leagues. They don't know it, but that's their purpose. And so those are the guys I was striking out. When you get to the big leagues, it's the creme de la creme, and it's harder getting a pitch by somebody. And I to be honest with you, I quit trying. I could throw a sinker outside, inside, change up, inside, outside, breaking ball, and get people to roll over. Sal Bando once said in the paper, he goes, I couldn't wait to get up and hit against Fitzmorris, and then I'd be back on the bench wondering what the heck happened. How did he get me out? And I was just that pitcher, kind of, I'm sure, frustrating for a lot of hitters. I threw a Tom Bergmeyer brings this up all the time, former Royal. When he was with Minnesota, I threw like a 12-hit shutout. I don't think I struck anybody out. And after the game, the manager was just ranting and raving, how can we not score a run off this guy? Got us out. You didn't strike anybody out. You got us out. Enough said.
You had to, you made the majors pretty fast, but
I did.
You had to sort of continue to prove yourself for a while before you had a regular slot as a starter. You did, you pitched in the major leagues, and then you wouldn't make the team coming out of camp. How frustrating was that? And when you felt maybe like, hey, I've done the job here. What's going on?
In Jack McKeon managed me in 1969, and we had some differences. I had differences with everybody that I ever played for, except for Bob Lemon. He was my favorite. He and I got along famously because we were both kind of rebels. We went our own way and did our own thing. And Jack said, if I ever get to Major League Club, you're not going to be on it. And so I played for 70, 71, 72, and then Jack got the club in 73. Tom Murphy and I, in spring training, we threw like a 1-hit or 2-hit shutout against Pittsburgh. Think back to
a very good team,
teams. In Bradenton. And the next day, he sent us both out. And Jan and I were married. We'd been married for about 2 years at the time. And I go, that's it. I'm done. I quit. I'm tired of baseball. I'm tired of this stuff. I've had 3 good years. I shouldn't have to prove myself. This is a personal thing. And so she goes, well, quit. But shut up about it. And I go, well, aren't you going to argue? No. If you want to quit, quit. But I don't want to hear anything about it. And I don't want any regrets. And she goes, or if you decide to play, shut up and go play. And so I went down to Omaha, and worked harder than I'd ever worked in my life, and got back about mid-year, and from that point on, I was generally like the number 2 starter maybe. And one of the reasons I wasn't a 1 starter is because I didn't throw as hard as everybody else. And They always give that to the guy that's got the great stuff, but I just got people out and won games.
Sounds like Jan obviously was and has been a great sounding board for you. This and in doing research for this, there's some great vintage photos of you guys together. She was and is a beautiful woman, a lovely person always. How did you get together?
This is a good story. I met her in the Plaza area, bar. I was having a drink after the game, and Jan came in, and she was actually trying to get an ID. She was underage, and I saw this girl, and I go, oh my gosh! And I was just in the throes of a divorce.
Right.
I was just getting the divorce, and I go, what are the odds? I said, this isn't going to happen. But anyway, I went up and talked to her, and we made a date for like 2 or 3 nights from that point on. And I'd forgotten, she'd forgotten I'd lost her, whatever the case may be. But somehow or another, we ran into each other again, and we made sure we had each other's number, and we started dating and dated for a year. And then in the spring of 71, divorce was final.
Right.
We're at a restaurant. It was like a pizza restaurant. And I go, Jan, I've got a question I got to ask you. She goes, what? And I go, I'm thinking, I've got no shot here. And I go, I would love to spend the rest of my life with you. Would you marry me? And she goes, oh my gosh, yes. And this is what I said. I go, seriously? I mean, I was, I'd been married. I was young. I'd already been married. I had 3 kids. Jan was just 21, young. She'd been, I'll throw this out there, she's runner-up Miss Kansas about a year before that.
Not surprising.
And I go, something's going to happen. And then we decided to get, she's going to marry me. So we started making plans, and we got married. It was July 13th of 71, which is the day of the All-Star game that year. And I knew I wasn't going to be busy. I'd have the time off. So we set that as a date. And true story, my brother came back from San Diego to be my best man. He and Paul Shaw was my other guy. And we were at the altar of the church waiting for the bride, and the music's playing. And my brother goes, there's the pastor, the bridesmaids, my brother, Paul Shaw, myself, and my brother goes, she's not showing. She's gone. Why wouldn't she? Why would she show up? You've got nothing. And then she started down the aisle, and that was 48 years ago. So
more of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Before you spend your time and money going after an MBA, ask yourself why. Is it so you can tell people you got your MBA? So you can add a line to your CV? So you can call it a CV instead of a resume? Truth is, any MBA will do that. On the other hand, if your goal is to learn how to successfully manage and grow a business with real-world insights from experienced professionals, well, consider getting your MBA from Park University. Our low student-to-teacher ratio gives you personalized attention, and our face-to-face and online classes offered in 8-week terms are designed with working professionals like you in mind. No wonder the Kansas City Business Journal ranks Park University as the top MBA program in the area. Classes begin June 10th at all 4 KC area locations: Parkville, Downtown, Independence, and Lenexa. Visit park.edu to get started.
Looking for a truly unique escape from your normal entertainment or corporate team-building regimen? Stay tuned for an exclusive offer only for Reasonably Irreverent listeners. I'm excited to tell you about an extraordinary destination, the Exit Room, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Lee Summit. The Exit Room is a distinctive entertainment option that offers a cool alternative to the normal couples night out, family get-togethers, and corporate team-building events. The Exit Room is a one-of-a-kind boutique escape room catering to special occasions and corporate team-building events and is unmatched in the Kansas City metro. With 5 individually designed and varied escape room adventures, your party or employees can unplug from their electronic world, interact with one another, match wits, and ultimately escape the humdrum of the ordinary. The Exit Room adventures cross decades and centuries and create fascinating fun. I know the owners well. They are local folks, their staff is warm and friendly, their lobby is inviting and beautiful, and their adventures are award-winning. Check online. There are over 1,000 reviews, and note that they are a rare 5-star ranked business. Visit their website and Facebook page, and any of my listeners who books online at theexitroomkc.com using the promo code ClinkScale19 gets 10% off any ticket purchase. The Exit Room in Lee Summit. Unplug, interact, and escape. Sumner One is the company to make your office maximize efficiency. Their family of companies make up one of the largest independent dealers of office technology in the Midwest. They are proud to bring the best service and technology to top companies across the region. Sumner One can help your organization run more smoothly than ever. Sumner One printers, copiers, MFPs, managed print services, document management, infrastructure design, IT services, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Welcome to the one place where everything works. For more information, call Carl Little at 913-752-2256. I was duped, and I recommend you be next. For better or worse, the ultra-realistic impression of me sits now in my wife's office to spook her on a daily basis. So what is Doob? D-O-O-B. It's the keepsake of a lifetime, a 3D-generated, incredibly lifelike figurine. 66 cameras take an image at exactly the same moment in any pose, and state-of-the-art 3D technology transforms that into exact replicas of you, anyone you know or love, a pet, whomever is close to your heart. Create lifetime memories with a Doob. Visit their Facebook page at Doob 3D Kansas City, or better yet, see their incredible creations. Visit their location down on the plaza in the heart of it at 231 West 47th Street in KC Mo. Doob, be next. Our guest is Al Fitzmorris on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. You mentioned you and Bob Lemon got along great, and he was your favorite manager. At that point in time, you probably also shared the love of a good cocktail. Would that be the case? Because I know Bob did.
Bob and I, we had a few, and we weren't supposed to. But Lem said, he goes, don't hang out in the bars that I hang out in, but if you do, and he goes, don't ever run away. He says, we'll have a drink together. And he was just a guy that you could go to and talk to. And, early on, again, newly married, newly divorced. And I mean, I there were a lot of ththings going on in my life trying to keep things straight. And I could go to him and talk to him because he was, he's a wise man, Hall of Famer. He too was, he loved the hit. He knew I loved the hit. Because several times he didn't pinch hit for me because, he trusted me at the bat. And one game in Boston that kind of solidified my feelings for Bob Lemon is I was going into the ninth inning. We were ahead by a run, 2 runs. And he was sending me out to complete the game, and he goes, Fitz. And he goes, he says, you're not going to lose this game. And I said, well, how can you say that? And he goes, if you get a runner on base, I'm going to pull you. He goes, because you pitched too long and too hard not to get a win. And he goes, I won't let that happen to you. And I mean, I went out there 10 feet tall and, got the job done.
Right.
And that was Lem with me all the time. And, he let me do some things that maybe someone else might not have gotten away with because he just knew I had a lot of things going on and, I didn't need anything else to deal with. I used to like to wear my hair a little longer than most of the people. And he said, that's fine, Al. I said, just, keep winning. Just keep winning.
That's great. That's a great story. I will tell one story that's not particularly embarrassing, but it might tell of the times and what you and remember you telling me that you and I think Steve Busby were sent ahead like they do, they send you ahead to get some rest for the following game if it's the last game of a series and you're going to pitch maybe the first game of a homestand or something. Tell that story.
Yeah, they used to fly the starting pitcher oftentimes ahead so that you could get a good night's sleep, so that you wouldn't be on the flight all night and what have you. And I was a day game in Oakland, and we were going to play in kind of a cross country thing in Milwaukee. We had a doubleheader, and so they sent Buzz and I ahead. And when the team got in at the hotel that night, it was probably 1 o'clock. Buzz and I were at the bar. And so we had a few cocktails with the rest of the team, and we go, that's it. This isn't happening anymore. You guys totally screwed this up. But, I mean, we were doing what we always did,
right.
and good, bad, or, again, things that we shouldn't have done. But that's what we did. We, as a team, I would venture to say that on any given night, there'd be 8 or 10 of us in the same place that we would hang out because we got to know the ownership. They would take care of us. We could kind of stay in our own section. Nobody would bother us. And we just talked baseball. We really did. We'd kid each other. We'd hold court and just have fun. Just have fun, not bother anybody, so to speak, and then just jump in some cabs and go home.
What was it for you to have a family? You had 3 kids from your previous marriage, and now you're starting a new relationship, a great relationship it's almost lasted a half a century now. What was that like to have sort of 2 families?
Very difficult because the three children were on the West Coast.
Right.
And I was in the Midwest. And it was tough for them. Their mom and I did not have a great relationship. I never said anything negative about her, but I just didn't want anything to do with her. She wound up getting married 4 or 5 times.
Right.
So maybe I wasn't the really bad guy that she portrayed me to be. But it was difficult because they would listen to their mom. And my older daughter, she and I have always had a close relationship. No one could ever come between that, and no one ever has. And in fact, she talked to me about 2 months ago and said, "Dad, one thing I've always respected about you is you never said a bad word about Mom." And she goes, "I really appreciate that. I admire you for that." And I go, "Well," I said, "we were both young. We both did the best we could." I said, "Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't." So, I understand. But they couldn't understand why I just couldn't fly out there and spend time with them. And it's because I didn't have the money. I mean, my first year in the big leagues, I made $10,000, won 8 games. Next year I made 12, won 7 games. Next year I made 14. And that's kind of how it went until I finally wound up last year making about $65,000 for the Royals, which, in 76 was pretty good money. But I never had the money that I could just jump on a flight, fly back, spend a week with the kids. But, when I could see them, we'd go to Anaheim and Oakland 3 times a year, and I'd have them, they'd stay with me in the hotel. And, unfortunately, that was kind of the way it was.
Right.
That was kind of it. So it was difficult. I wish I could change things, do them differently. But at the time, again, you kind of get into survival mode.
Right.
And you just do the best you can. And that was the best I could do at the time. So
you hit your stride from a professional standpoint in baseball in your late 20s and had really great seasons in 74, 75, 76. What was it, just the opportunity, or did something else click in for you?
I think Jan was a big influence in that. She was always there, very supportive. And just I finally had someone I thought had my back 24/7. I had some manager Jack McKee and I came back in 73. I think I won 8 games in half a year. In 73, 74, I think I won 13, then I won 16, then 15. Things just started clicking for me. It was kind of like I'd been sent out. What's the worst that can happen again? I can get sent out again. And so I said, I'm throwing strikes. I'm getting people out. Some guy posted something the other day in 74, a 12-inning game I pitched and won, complete game. I beat Ferguson Jenkins. Just give me the ball. If let the hitters decide when it's time to come out, and just leave me alone. And that's kind of the way it went.
76, you had a really good season, and now the team has finally achieved success in the postseason, and Whitey Herzog is the manager, and you were the best pitcher on the team, basically, 15-11, 3.06 earned run average. And he told you weren't going to pitch in the first round there was only 2 rounds, but in the playoffs against the Yankees. What was that like?
Didn't go well with me. I pitched a game in Texas towards the end of the season, and I pitched maybe 8 innings, and it came out with a no decision. And I think the game went into extra innings. And I jumped up. Al Collins hit a ball, I remember this, off the left center field wall that I thought was going to go out, which would have been the game, or could have been the game. We were in Texas. And I kind of rolled my ankle a little bit. And we went from Texas to we won the game, but we went from Texas to Oakland. And I kept trying to throw, and my ankle was really bothering me. But, again, I was going to get it taped up. And I told Galen Cisco, maybe the second to last day in Oakland. I think we had a day off, and then we had a 3-game series. And I go, I said, I don't think I'm going to be able to pitch in Oakland, but I'll be good for Minnesota. And he goes, I don't know. And I go, well, maybe the second or third game, because we had to win one more game.
Right.
And he goes, Whitey's going to pass on the Minnesota series. I go, why? He goes, he just doesn't have any faith in you. And I go, faith in me? I said, he's been here a year and a half, and he doesn't have faith in me? I said, I've won 31
games right,
in 2 years, and he doesn't have faith in me? And so I go, I'm going to talk. He said, no, don't go talk to him. Just stay. I said, I'm talking to him. I said, he's not going to do this to me. So I went in and we had it out. And he just said, because Leo and I, Dennis Leonard and I, were pitching on 3 days rest because Busby was done.
Right.
Splittorff, I think, had blisters or had something going on. So we were carrying a load. And, yeah, we weren't as effective as we probably could have been, neither one of us. But we were still probably the best options. And Larry Gura had pitched one game.
Right.
And, Larry Gura wound up with a great career. I mean,
right.
He's a fine pitcher. But he was going to go all lefties. Whitey was going to go all lefties. The Yankees have been beating lefties all year. That's how they got where they were. Even though they had a lot of left-handed hitters, that's what they saw. And so Whitey and I had it out, and I said, he said, you're not going to pitch in Minnesota. And he goes, in fact, he said, you might not pitch in the playoffs. And I just went off on him. And I said, I don't care if I ever pitch for you again. And I didn't.
Right.
I was exposed to the draft that year. And, Whitey and I, we get along. We say hi and whatever. But, that's about it for me. And I know Whitey's beloved and, good for Whitey. I'm glad he's achieved all he's achieved. But, he's, that's just my feeling. That's me personally.
Well, I mean, he completely did you wrong. That's not understandable. Gura, I pointed out in a couple of articles I read, he didn't have particularly strong splits, even about getting left-handers out. So anyway, and he didn't pitch particularly well in the series against the Yankees also. So it's understandable that you're more gracious than you should be about that.
The thing is, Danny, is that, again, from age 10, this is what I wanted to do. And you talk to any kid that plays baseball, they want to play in the series, World Series. And Whitey said, he said, if we get to the World Series, you'll pitch. And I go, we got to get there first, Whitey. And that was about the last thing I said to him as a manager.
Right.
And I watched Chambliss hit a fly ball out of the ballpark in Yankee Stadium from the bullpen without any hopes of getting in the game. So it was pretty disheartening.
I would imagine. And actually, that was sort of the beginning of the end for you as a baseball player in some regards. I mean, you had such a great season. Was it especially disappointing to leave Kansas City? What do you think the circumstances were when you were drafted by Toronto, but they traded you immediately to Cleveland? So the next year you pitched for Cleveland, and you had your worst season. What were the circumstances for that?
Again, I've always been the person you've known, a little rebellious, a little anti-management, and Frank Robinson and I didn't get along at all.
Well, that's not uncommon.
No, and Frank, I went in to work on a contract with the Indians, and I saw Frank in a club, and Frank calls me over, and he's sitting with some buddies, and goes, "I want to introduce." And they traded
Alan Ashby,
and
another
their number
player.
one catcher and their number one draft pick, a kid named Howard, I think it was. And he goes, he's going to be my 6th or 7th starter. That's the first words he said to me. And I go, well, here we go. And, Cleveland back in the 70s was horrible. It was the worst place to play in baseball.
Right.
And, the team, the players themselves, we weren't a unit. Everybody had their own cliques. The guys that had been there were kind of, in one way, Buddy Bell, Dwayne Kuiper, Bill Melton, Freddie Kendall, and myself kind of hung together. We all wanted to win. We all were hungry to win. But, we felt like that was kind of alone. And just didn't feel like a cohesive unit, and it wasn't. And Frank lasted about half a year, and Jeff Torborg took over. And I just spent a year and a half wanting out of there. I just absolutely hated it there. And, I had felt, I know baseball is a business, it's a game, but I felt that, kind of that I left my heart back here in Kansas City. This is where I wanted to be. All my buddies were here. And so, it just, it didn't work. We were in Texas, and we had a morning flight. And I missed the flight. I just slept in. No reason, I just slept in. And flew back. We had a day off. Flew back on my own. And the next day, I get a phone call. And it's Phil Sagi, the general manager. He goes,
Right.
Frank Robinson wants you out here at the ballpark. I said, why? It's a day off. He wants you to work out. And I go, is the whole team working out? He says, no, just you. And I go, I'm not going to do that. And he goes, you will do that. And I go, I'm not going to do that. I said, why? Why? Because I missed the flight. I said, I paid my own way. It's a day off. And he goes, well, you just better get out here. So I said, I'm not going to be out there. Go to the ballpark the next day. I'm dressing out. Phil calls me up into the office. I go up there and he goes, we're going to suspend you without pay. And I go, for what? He goes, for what took place yesterday. I go, hang on. Called Marvin Miller. And I was out in one of the outer offices.
He's the Player Association head, for those who knew him.
And he was a monster.
He was a monster.
He was
a good one.
I go, Mr. Sagi, Marvin Miller would like to talk to you. And he just hangs up the phone. He goes, go get dressed. Get out of here. So that was the end of that. And
so that was kind of the relationship in a little nutshell there.
Real quick, a funny story. When we were negotiating contracts, I had International Management Group, who at the time had like Jack Nicklaus, Tom Weisskopf, all golfers.
IMG,
I was the first baseball player. They were getting nowhere. They couldn't get me signed. I wanted 3 years, guaranteed contract. I wanted like 90,000, 130, and 150. And Cleveland wasn't budging. And so I went home. Then they flew me back. And we were at the outer office getting ready to go in and talk to Phil. I go, you guys stay here. I've got this. He goes, no. We're going to go in with you. And I go, okay, but don't say a word. All right. These are my two agents. So I go in there and I go, Phil, I'd really like to feel like I'm a part of the team. I said, you already traded 2 players for me. I said, you're not going to get them back. And I said, but I don't feel a part of this team. I don't feel a part of this city. I don't feel a part of this organization. I don't feel part of anything here. I said, I've looked at houses. I said, I'd love to buy a house. But I don't have a contract. I'm not making any money. I don't have a dime. I said, how can this happen? And he goes, you're looking at a house? I go, yeah. And at the time, they were trying to get people to live in Cleveland. Because Cleveland, it was the pits. It was horrible. They go, all right, let's do this. So we signed the contracts, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, by the way, he goes, where are you looking? And I go, Alpine. He goes, Alpine? He said, I'm pretty familiar with Cleveland. Where's Alpine? I go, it's in Southern California. And he goes, you're going to buy in Southern California? I go, who would live here? And he started, oh, my gosh. My agents were biting holes in their cheeks to keep from laughing. But
all you said was you were looking at a house.
I just said I was looking at a house. I didn't say Cleveland.
Didn't say.
So we got a contract signed. We got the deal done. And that, to be honest with you, I kind of set the tone for how the entire relationship was going to go. And it wasn't a good tone, and it pretty much stayed there.
But baseball contracts are guaranteed, so you get the money.
Yeah,
you get the money. California, you pitched a little bit in '78, and then it was time to hang it up. Well, what was the eventual decision for you?
Well, the reason that happened, I actually had a pretty good half a year in Anaheim with the Angels. I think I was 1-0 and had like a
1.71 earned run average.
Yeah, I pitched very well. And I had one more year left on my contract with Cleveland. And so I was going to perfectly willing to play for a minimum. The Angels wanted me. I talked to Mike Port, who was the GM, and he goes, we want you back next year. We're going to work you in as a starter. And because they had a pretty set rotation at the time. They had Tannen and Nolan Ryan.
Right.
And a guy named Knapp.
Yep, Mike Knapp, I think. Yeah.
But they had some good pitchers. And so he says, but we want you back. And I go, I'm in. Count me in. So my agents call me, and they go, you've got an opportunity to become a free agent and still get your contract. And I go, I don't want to be a free agent. I don't want to test the market. I said, leave me alone. Leave me alone.
Now, how did that work? You had another year in your contract.
I have no idea.
There was a clause in there,
I
or
have no idea, but I wasn't under control of them other than a contract. So somehow they go, you can be a free agent. So they contacted the Angels and said, thank you for your opportunity, but we're going to try the market. And, coming off 2 years in Cleveland, which weren't very good, I didn't have that much value. And so no one went after me. And the Angels said, well, if you're going to pull this on us, we'll find somebody else. And so I called Roger Craig, who's a friend of mine. He was the manager of the Padres, and goes, yeah. He said, come to spring training. We'll find a spot for you. So I went there, and again, they had some young kids that they wanted to try, and they said, go to AAA, short period of time, and we'll bring you up right away. And so in the interim in spring training, I threw a pitch, and my shoulder just tweaked. And I go, well, this isn't good. And it just continued to bother me. And they said, well, you need to get some work in. You need to heal. Go to Hawaii. I said, we'll make you a pitching coach, player coach in Hawaii. You can pitch when you want, when you can. And my arm just never came around again. Okay. And so about July, I told Jan, I go, let's get out of here. We're done. We've got another 4 or 5 months of salary. Right. From the Indians, and we're still getting a little money from the Padres. Let's just go home and enjoy ourselves. I thought the money was going to last for a long time, and so, as I love golf, and so I played golf every day for almost a year. And Jan goes, "Have you checked the bank account?" And I go, "No, that's not my job." And she goes, "Well, there's nothing in there. You need to go to work." So here we are, Danny. The rest of my life, so to speak, but. It was a great run. I had a lot of fun. I'm still some of my best friends. I see here in Kansas City that played for the Royals, and I've got an opportunity to be on the radio with you and Don and some other people. So it's been good. It's been good.
What was after you sort of transitioned into your retirement by playing a bunch of golf, which isn't that unusual for many people. Yeah. I did one recently with Bob Dernier. He kind of did the same thing for a couple of years. So did that help the transition away from baseball, and was that transition in any way difficult for you?
It was very difficult. Okay. It was very difficult. I was good until spring training, and then it got really hard. And I used to listen to the Padre games, Jerry Coleman, Dave Campbell, and I really missed it. And we only were in San Diego because I retired in San Diego. We bought a house in San Diego.
All right.
And I was working every day, working very hard every day. And Jan goes, "Fitz, this isn't for you. This isn't for us. Let's go back to Kansas City. There's more opportunities, what have you." So we were there about 3 years, maybe 4 years. Moved back to Kansas City, and I was 36, and my arm was fine. And so I called Sherholtz, and I go, "John, I want to pitch again." He goes, Fitz, seriously." And he goes, "I've got a pretty good pitching staff here." And I go, I hadn't paid much. "Who you got?" He goes, "Well, you got a kid named Gubaza, Saberhagen, Bud Black, Danny Jackson." And he goes, you don't need to come back and try this. He goes, "You had a great career." And he goes, "I don't want you to come and not be the player you were." And so we talked, and he was right. Mm-hmm. And so, that dashed my hopes. And so I just kind of reinvested my energy and skills, expertise into my kids and working with them to get them where they needed to maybe be in portions of life, but in sports as well. So
right. Music's always been a very important part of your life from a very young age, and you still play it. You've been in bands. You've had a band. You write songs. Talk about that.
It started. One of the reasons I played baseball is because I liked performing in front of people, and I think most players would tell you that if they were honest. They love the game, but they love performing in front of crowds, and nothing like walking off. It used to be Royal Stadium, 31,000 people after throwing a 9-inning game. And having everybody standing up, and it was just like an adrenaline junkie. What else could there be other than playing in a band and getting kind of the same thing? So, from a very early age, I wrote and sang, played a little guitar, played well enough to write. I'm not a great guitar player by any stretch, but my buddy and I actually wrote some music for some of the high school musicals we did, because we were performers. And so I just continued writing, continued playing, played in bands, mostly cover bands. We'd cover classic rock and do originals. I've actually had a couple songs in a documentary about James Naismith. It was called One in a Million, about his dream and what have you. But I still continue to write. I'm actually working on a couple of screenplays that I've talked to some of my friends from the Big Slick, and there might be some interest there. It's they're kind of unique ideas that I kind of keep close to the vest, but they're unusual. They're a little frightening, but I think they'd be really. It'd be a movie that I'd want to go see, and I'm kind of a movie buff. And another one is a comedy, and as I write it, I'm laughing because it is kind of funny, and I'm picturing some of the people that I would love to have be a part of it. And it's based on golf.
Okay.
Kind of, there used to be a movie years ago, Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin, The Caddy.
Right.
And it's kind of about a modern day caddy. And I'm thinking of kind of the most odd off the cuff, out of the book, out of the envelope type of person who could be a caddy. And I'm thinking of a guy like a Kevin Hart, just doing and saying whatever he wants as he's caddying for PGA Pro. And I'm having fun with that. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm still writing music.
Talk about your kids.
Sir, Rebecca's birthday is actually October 3rd, as we speak. And Matthew, she's going to be 44. Matthew is just turned 45, and he and I work together. And we have for a number of years. We've had businesses together. And Rebecca's over in St. Louis area as a teacher. But Rebecca went to KU on a full-ride scholarship playing softball, and Matthew wound up signing with Atlanta. So, I did my job there, and after that, they're on their own. But we're still very close. We stay in touch. Rebecca's going to come in for birthday celebration shortly, and I see Matthew every day, so it's all good.
And through it all, Jan's been there for you.
Oh yeah, she's my rock. Again, everybody like with Matthew signing or with Rebecca going to KU on a scholarship, I get the credit, but it's half me, if that. It's the mom is like the clubby, the traveling secretary, the GM. She has all the jobs. My job, I just show up and teach them how to do stuff. That's the easy part, but. Fortunately, they got mostly Jan's common sense and looks. Thank good Lord. But it's just been so good. When I've been down, she's picked me up. I've done a lot of growing up. I'm still, when I'm with certain people, I still feel like the kid in the group, and that's ship's long since sailed. But I don't know. She just makes me feel good every day. And one of the reasons, and I tried the retirement thing, and it wasn't for me, because one of the things I loved over all these years is coming home, coming back to my home, and Jan being there. And when I was there all the time, it just lost that dynamic. So this is kind of cool. We reunite every evening, and we've got days where we spend together. But I don't know. When I picture her, I still picture her as that 21-year-old sitting across the way from me at the Pizza Hut that said, "Yeah, I'll marry you," and me, the idiot, opposite her, saying, "Are you serious? You not know about my baggage and all this I'm carrying?" But she still deals with it because those kids don't go away. And through Matthew, my son, and Rebecca, my daughter, we've got 4 grandchildren, and they're athletes. They're all athletes. And I've actually have a grandson who played for Philadelphia when they won the Super Bowl, Elijah Quayles. He was a defensive tackle from my third daughter. So there's a lot of kids in the family, a lot of grandkids. I have a great-granddaughter, and things are going pretty well.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.